Facilitate today's session involving the Blake family, Blake Robbins family. The Blake Robbins family were involved in a notorious webcam scandal in Lower Merion, Pennsylvania. I happen to be a neighbor of the Robbins. They don't know that. They don't know me. They never met me. But my daughter attends the same high school that their son attends, so I took special interest in the course of this case. They're going to be in a couple of minutes and will tell their story, but before they arrive, I just want to give you some background information about the case. In the 2009-2010 school year, the Lower Merion School District, which is a very affluent school district in suburban Philadelphia, decided to issue to all of its high school students Mac computers. Students could use these computers to do their homework, to access course portals, and to do school research. Unbeknownst to the students and their families, the computers, which were MacBooks, were equipped with some very powerful software. This was a theft tracking software, which would enable the school, enable them to locate a missing computer. The theory was that if you could take screenshots from the computer, from a remotely activated server, then you'd be able to identify the thief and take action against the thief. That was the theory. That was the hope. That was the plan. So it turned out that the school became interested in the behavior of one particular young person named Blake and decided to activate the webcam on his computer remotely. They took over 200 screenshots, over 200 webcam photographs, and also collected his copies of his email and his instant messages and sent it all to their central server. And then one day the vice principal decided she would actually take a look at the photographs and the screenshots, and she reached the conclusion that inappropriate behavior was going on. As it happened, these screenshots and these webcam shots were of Blake, not only outside of the school, but actually in his own bedroom at home. Some of the pictures showed him partially clothed. Family members were captured, as well as other personal information. So the Blake Robbins family decided to bring a lawsuit against the Lower Merion School District, a civil suit. And in that civil suit, they alleged several causes of action, including violations of Pennsylvania's wiretap laws, Pennsylvania Invasion of Privacy Tort, the Federal Electronic Privacy Communications Act, the Wiretap Act and the Stored Communications Act, and the Computer Fraud and Misuse Act. The criminal authorities were interested as well. Had a crime occurred? So the FBI and U.S. Attorney initiated a criminal investigation. Because the criminal authorities found no evidence of intentional criminal wrongdoing, they dropped any criminal investigations. The civil suit, however, went forward, and it was quickly settled for $610,000. And that money, unfortunately, about $400 went to the lawyers. The rest went to a trust fund for Blake and for another student who had also been the victim of targeted webcam surveillance. For me, this situation raises a number of very interesting questions. One of them is, why don't security concerns automatically trigger appropriately serious privacy concerns? So, whenever you're going to do something in the name of security, such as install theft tracking software, why don't you automatically think about the privacy implications and privacy rights of the people that you intend to surveil? The second question that this raises for me is, why isn't the privacy rights why aren't the privacy rights of our children, of our youth, taken more seriously? And there are some federal laws which do take children's privacy seriously. The Children's Online Privacy Protection Act prohibits website operators from collecting personal data from children under 13. In this case, the children were over 13, but you would still think that their privacy interests on the internet will be protected by both federal law and also by school district practices. And the third question I think this case raises is, why aren't privacy laws better respected? In a school district, a public authority is bound by the Fourth Amendment. Search and seizure requires a warrant. There is no warrant obtained before this child's computer was searched. Plus, I mentioned before, we have the federal communications laws, computer fraud and abuse laws. Why aren't these laws taken more seriously? Why didn't the school district undertake a legal analysis of their conduct before they engaged in it? So I'd be happy to answer any questions I can in this discussion about the legal background, but I'm pleased to say that we have the family itself here to answer questions and also to describe to you what it's like from the point of view of a family to undergo this sort of webcam surveillance. So I'll come down to introduce Holly and her husband Mark in just a second. Michael. Holly has just taken a long car ride to get here with a injured foot, so we have to give her extra applause for having come so far with the condition.
Thank you. I broke my foot. It hasn't been easy.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Robbins have brought with them their liaison. Her name is Rochelle. And Michael and Holly, you don't know, but I'm your neighbor in Lower Merion.
Oh.
My daughter attends Merion High School. And so I took special interest in the case. I'm a professor at Penn, and I've just been giving the group a little bit of a preview by telling them about the legal background of the case. So we want to hear from you, your own mouths, your story. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Our story actually started about almost 2 years ago, getting a phone call from the vice principal that she felt that my son might be involved in inappropriate behavior. And I was shocked because I know that that's not like my son. And I asked her how she knew this, and she said she had pictures of my son. I had asked her, I assumed they were on school grounds, and I said, what was he doing in school? And she said, well, it was not in school, it was at home in his bedroom. And I said, how do you have pictures of my son in his bedroom? And she said she was watching him. And when I was more concerned about that than what my son was doing, she couldn't discuss it with me. And she carried on to tell me what she thought my son was doing. The bottom line is my son was not involved in inappropriate behavior, which we found out the next day. And she then decided, she apologized for assuming that and went on her merry way. And I had to go back to finding out where she obtained the pictures and why they were taken in my bedroom, my son's bedroom. And she would not address that at all.
You're referring to the vice principal here?
This is the vice principal at my son's high school. My son was in 10th grade at the time.
If I can interrupt, she wasn't that apologetic. She really wasn't at all.
But after that, I tried to call the principal to find out where these pictures were coming from, where they were being taken, and there was no response from the principal. I tried to call the school board. I left messages, and nobody got back to me. The only person I was able to speak to was my son's counselor, and she advised me that they were coming from the computer, that they were taking pictures from the computer, and she too showed concern that they could maybe even be watching her, and that she would get back to me with more information. When I didn't hear back from her, I contacted our attorney. And
he didn't believe it. He felt that it was a mistake and that the school district would never look at students off school grounds after hours. He said that this obviously, I don't believe that it's really happening, but I'll do some research.
And bottom line is, he researched it and found out that they were obviously taking pictures, not only of my son, but of many children. They wound up taking 66,000 pictures that they obtained. That was only the ones that were recovered. There was many, many more pictures that were not recovered, and they were taking pictures of my son for 16 days. Every 15 minutes the camera went off.
This picture here was of my son sleeping in his bed, and it was broadcast not only nationally but around the world. It was on AOL News and Yahoo and Fox National and CNN.
These were some of the pictures that were, these are the kind of pictures that they were taken of my son in the privacy of his home. And without him knowing, he was being watched, like I said, for 16 days. They recovered over 500 pictures, and the rest of the pictures were not recovered. They recovered 6 days worth of pictures.
There was about 10 days of pictures that they didn't recover. And what my wife didn't mention was my attorney filed a complaint, a lawsuit in the federal district court in Philadelphia, which turned in, we thought it was just going to be a low profile, nobody would even say anything, and we woke up the next morning and my family was besieged by the media from all the major news organizations. George Stephanopoulos called, Dr. Phil called, literally on my cell phone when I got out of the shower. I dropped my towel. And it was like a media event. And my son was just trying to be a typical high school kid and go about his business, but he couldn't. When he came out of school, there were reporters and all kinds of people coming up to him and asking for comments. And
it really did change our lives, I have to tell you. And I also have a daughter who was in 12th grade at the time, and they also have pictures of her. For a whole week they were taking pictures of her, and those pictures were not recovered, but it was on the list that pictures of her were being taken. And the ones of my son that were actually taken were not only viewed by the tech department. There was a tech department at the school. I think there was about 3 or 4 tech people, and not only were they were viewing all 66,000 pictures, but with my son's, not only were they viewing his, they downloaded his pictures and they passed his pictures out to the administrative staff. The vice principal requested to have those pictures of him that she wanted to see personally.
Howard, did you explain why you think on that day, October 20th, 2009, the school district decided to ask the tech department to turn on your son's webcam in the first place and began the 16-day surveillance? What prompted that? Why would they do that to your son?
My son had a computer that was, they give out computers, they were giving out computers to every student, which was a nice luxury in the beginning of the year, and they would collect them at the end of the year, and they use this and subsequent with books. And at the time, they asked for a $100 deductible. Everybody had to give $100 for the insurance.